Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for being with us this afternoon. Mr. Debashish Panda is going to be joining in just a few minutes from now. But we're talking about reforms during these times, what the next decade is going to look like. Mr. Panda is here. So thank you very much for taking your time out and speaking with us today. Let me first begin by asking you, privatization seems to be the buzzword, Mr. Pandey. And you, of course, are tasked with the execution this time around. So how critical is that going to be? And you have a huge pipeline ahead of you, BPCL, Shipping Corp, Air India, BEML. You name it, and the companies are there. So how many can we really expect to be privatized in this year itself?
Well, I think number of companies, the names of the companies are also mentioned in the budget speech by the Finance Minister. So there is, actually the names itself are in the budget speech, which is quite unusual. Normally you would have only the target, but I think the names have been mentioned, so those will be privatized.
So you're saying those will be privatized, but a lot of people are also, we're seeing the kind of pushback as well. So how will you kind of ensure that that pushback is also aptly dealt with? Because, for example, we're seeing what's happening with RINL. We are seeing the bank strikes as well. So what will you do to allay the fears of employees? Because that is going to be critical as we're looking into the next phase of reforms.
I think that is also a process, because obviously if there is a big policy change, then there will be, questions. Different stakeholders have questions, and we will need to convince them, because ultimately, the employees as a stakeholder, taxpayers is another big stakeholders, society at large, including the business community, investors are one of the stakeholders. So if there is a concern, I think that concern will need to be addressed, and we will have to talk to them. Because behind privatization, the main objective is growth of enterprises. Because if you don't have, the potential of those enterprises met, then I think nobody gains. Employees do not gain, the shareholders don't gain, society doesn't gain, taxpayers don't gain. Therefore, if you really look at the larger scheme of things, the potential of the enterprises in a very dynamic industrial world, in dynamic world, where even we are talking of industry
right.
4.0, or we are talking of, the whole lot of innovation which needs to come. We need a lot of capital for growth. The government is not in a position to provide that capital. So ultimately, if those organizations, those enterprises have to survive, and with that survival and growth is linked the interest of the employees, the interest of the society, interest of taxpayers, interest of even the larger community. Then I believe that once this is understood, then they will realize that, the privatization will actually be pro-growth, pro-employees, pro-productivity.
True.
So this is a dialogue which we need to carry.
While we're talking about privatization, Mr. Panda, I must ask this question to you as well. While we do know that this year there will be at least 2 banks that will be privatized, how is that process going? Where are we in terms of identifying the candidates? And at a time like this, just a couple of years ago, when we've consolidated a few large banks as well, what kind of identification process will we really see as far as the privatization of the banks is concerned?
You see, if you look at the banking system overall, what we had a few years ago and what it is today, now improved financials, then the capital position is very good now. And you see, the banking system led by the public sector banks, the entire COVID was managed so well in terms of, the credit flow, thanks to some of the government interventions like the ECL, GS and so on. I think the banking system is ready. They have been able to raise capital this time from the market, at least if you talk about the public sector banks. So out of 12, 11 are in profit. Cumulative, put together, the operating profit is around 25,000 crores. The provision coverage ratio is all-time high of more than 80%. And the capital adequacy ratio is well above the regulatory floor. It's somewhere around 13.5%. The GNPs are at rock bottom, somewhere from almost 17, 18%. It has come down to now about 8%, less than 8%. The net NPA has also come down to less than 3%. So all these are indications of the bank is very robust, sound, and now it's the appropriate time to also disinvest, because we have gone through a phase of consolidation.
Right.
So those banks are also showing good results. They are able to lend big, the balance sheet is growing. So, but as far as privatization is concerned, we have to look at a variety of issues, the policy-related issues, the legal issues, then of course the transition issues. We have to engage with the regulators.
So allow me to come in on that. When the consolidation for a lot of banks happened a while ago, and you yourself said that there are a lot of transition-related issues, and those are the kind of issues that some of the banks are still kind of dealing with. Having said that, does it really make sense now to once again look at privatizing those banks, or will you look at another set of banks, if I should put it like that?
You see, what I'm trying to tell you here exactly is that now the investors will find a lot of interest in the public sector banks. They have huge, strong fundamentals. Their reach is very wide. Now that they have sound financials and good capital position, it is time for the investors, to take a pick, whatever bank is on offer. Now, as far as which banks, which are the ones, I think that's difficult for me to answer at this point of time, because there are certain, forums which have been created. There are 3 layers through which it will go. So the deliberations are on. We're looking at the legal issues, because we'll have to make certain amendments in the acts. We are looking at other related issues, staff-related issues, then the transition issues, as I said. Then we have to engage with the 3 or 4 regulators, like the RBI, definitely, the insurance regulatory authority, because the banks have a lot of investment in insurance companies. We have to work with SEBI, because they are all listed banks. So all of this, then of course the Competition Commission and so on and so forth. So we have started that process, but this parliament session we were busy with the other bills.
Right.
And for the first time, I think the budget announcement were made on the 1st of February, and before March 31st, we have been able to clear 4 bills.
True, and I will be talking about, the DFI bill that got a clearance from the parliament just today. But Mr. Mohapatra, if I can come to you, you've really been the pillar behind the PLI schemes. A lot has been done on that front. And we're also speaking at a time that, COVID, of course, disrupted India's growth story. And we were banking on the PLI schemes to really push things forward for us. Where are we from here? We've seen PLI schemes being rolled out in many sectors. Which are the other sectors where we can see more PLI schemes coming in, and how soon?
Thanks, Ruchi. These PLI schemes have been announced in 3 stages.
Right.
The first one is the mobiles and certain electronics. The second one was APIs, and then the medical devices and pharma. Thereafter, these 3 products, and thereafter in November 2010 more sectors were chosen. Total outlay is around 1.97 lakh crores to be spent on, and each PLI typically covers 5 years. So these, then mobiles and electronics, the selection has already been done. The companies have already been informed. APIs and pharma, the first, second lot, the selection has been done. The cabinet approval is already there. So they are very soon going to finalize. The others, they are almost 5 to 6 of them are almost ready for the cabinet nod. And the second cabinet, it goes because of the financial approvals and the scheme approvals and all. So I expect by April end, all the 13 would be past the cabinet. The scheme should be ready for notification. You will have to appreciate, and in some we have a lot of bench strength, so probably a lot of brownfield will also immediately start. Some where you look for greenfield, for example, the solar modules and cells and all. So there it is, it will take time because any greenfield takes time. But this, once they are operational, the scheme is such that it will cover them for 5 years. So I see a lot of very, very exciting times for these sectors. We expect to be champions, unlike any other incentive scheme announced in Government of India in the past. This one is not just for any announcement. This is actually when you achieve those incremental production figures, you get it.
I must ask you, so how soon do you expect the dollars to start flowing in? Because we're, of course, speaking at a time when the second COVID wave is very much a reality, and that could perhaps thwart domestic production as well?
See, COVID or no COVID, our foreign direct investments has not been affected. On the contrary, it has grown higher than what it has grown before. So those figures are known to you. In PLIs also, we have not seen any slackening of any investments. And people who invest, particularly from abroad, they look into the long-term prospects. Everybody knows COVID has a limited thing. Probably now another couple of months, another 6 months, God knows what. But this has nothing to do with the way investment decisions are made. And people who are going to invest in India, they look for India with two things. One, India's size of the market itself, and India as a hub for exports. So that's how I don't see any problem in any slackening of investment. On the contrary, we see a lot of excitement and a lot of participation.
While you're talking about exports, of course, the big strategy there is also going to be able to create localized hubs for exports. So what kind of conversations you're having with the states at this point of time on that?
You all realize that in the Ministry of Commerce and Industry, you realize that ultimately it's the states where the production takes place, where the manufacturing takes place, delivery of the services take place. So naturally, they should play a major role in export promotions. So very systematically, the ministry is engaging with the states, and there's a sort of a competition among states. States are looking into the logistics hurdles in exports, and they're addressing them. So I don't. Definitely, there's a lot of engagement with the states in this regard.
Right. Mr. Panda, while, we're talking about the banking system, today the RBI governor was also speaking with us, and he spoke about how digital transformation is really going to be the thing of the next decade, something that the banking system should prepare itself towards. I want to understand from you, as the banking secretary, what is the kind of vision that you have for the banking system in the years to come, and how do you expect India's PSU banks to undertake the next phase of digital transformation?
See, you asked the question, what is the future? How do you look at banking? I would say in times to come, it will be banking everywhere, but not at a bank.
Exactly.
The other piece would be very, very hyper-personalized kind of lending is going to happen.
So are the PSU banks ready for it?
So what the change, the transition is happening. Now it'll be all based on technology, fintechs, InsurTech. So for financial services and financial products, it has to be technology. And more so with the millennial population now, the youngsters, they would not venture into a bank or a branch, they would be doing it through their phones, mobile phones, that's right. So now to answer your question on how ready we are, yes, we are definitely ready. We are doing a lot of things in the public sector space, in the banking space, in terms of more of imbibing technology. Some of the larger banks have already quite into it as far as digital lending is concerned, and the digital payments, you see, we already have a very robust infrastructure, and RBI has also come up with some new initiatives. So I think we are very much on it, and the public sector banks are now, in fact, going ahead to create a digital lending kind of entity, wherein all the public sector and later on they can even rope in the private sector banks for a completely end-to-end digital lending solutions.
But allow me to come in on that. Still, for a lot of users, people prefer private banks when you're talking about digital lending or, the digital interface as compared to PSU banks. So how would you bridge that gap?
You see, if you look at the SBI, it's a public sector bank,
right,
very much into digital lending. The YONO app for that matter, and then along with YONO, they're even lending to the farm community also, YONO Krishi and so on and so forth. A lot of value-added services are being provided through the YONO. So YONO is very much in competition. I think that the day they list this app, they are going to unlock huge amounts of money. They're saying, no, we'll hold on now. We'll do it at the appropriate time. So SBI is ready. Bank of Baroda is quite into. Beg your pardon?
I'm saying I want to ask you, what would be the right time for the YONO app to be brought
So similarly, the Bank of Baroda, the Punjab National, the large 5 banks, the ones which have been consolidated lately, they are all getting ready. Yes, the smaller banks have a bit of issue. So as we go along, we'll see how we deal with them.
Mr. Pandey, if I can come to you. While we're talking about privatization, I want to understand, since we're, of course, in the second phase for a lot of candidates that are on for privatization, and due diligence is also happening for other candidates. What kind of buyers are we really looking forward to? A lot of people talk about the Maruti model of privatization. Is that something that the government is actively looking at? Are we looking at buyers with deep pockets, or are we looking at buyers who protect really the essence of the company at the end of the day?
I think that I think our process is pretty transparent and also open, and with very limited entry barriers. The point is that the businesses today are expanding, so we do not have normally the sectoral criteria of having certain technical capacity, and we don't want to slot investors. Today the investors can go to a variety of industries. They can always hire professionals. So I mean, in fact, the companies we are normally selling, they will be going concerns, which means that there is a professional management already, and the employees will stay on with the company, and maybe a certain management personnel will be brought in by the investors. So we are normally having a net worth criteria where we know that there's a certain amount of equity to be divested. If it's a listed company, there is open offer has to be offered. So one should be able to consummate the deal. So, I mean, if you have a net worth of a certain kind, which is commensurate with the conclusion of the deal, that's good enough for us. We provide a lot of flexibility in terms of, consortia, because many times, this is a new thing, sometimes funds come, fund managers come, they also bring in sectoral players as consortium partner, so that is also possible. So we are bringing our, because I think our maxim is that if you get the, maximum bidders,
Right.
We discover the best value.
True.
So I think that is one way we would be able to really do that. So we have, of course, certain amount of clauses for protection of employees, in terms of asset stripping and so on. So in terms of our share purchase agreement, we will ensure that those things take place. There is a business continuity thereafter as well. But beyond that, we don't want to shackle the new investors, because what we want them to do is to propel them enterprises into a high growth.
Having said that, BPCL is one of the candidates that we will look to privatize this year, and you have previously spoken to us and you said that the due diligence process is on. When we do come to the stage of figuring out a reserve price for it, because BPCL's privatization is really going to guide the rest of the privatization that we will see in the years to come. How will the process move in terms of that, and what kind of thought will go behind it? If you can talk to us about that.
See, as I said, that the basic we do not actually offer is a bidding process.
Right.
So the bidding process will discover the market value. Reserve value concept is something where we are able to have a check. So that means this is something which we will probably expect to receive. But the reserve valuation is done only after the financial bids are logged in. The reason being that, the financial bidding process is the one where the people are evaluating in the market. So if we have got bidders there and they see the potential of the company, they would be definitely looking at the potential of the company and literally, putting their bids. The reserve value we don't want to disclose. One, in many cases, the companies there are two ways of auctions, for example. You could actually fix a floor value. Normally, in terms of, property sales, you would like to have a floor value and then do an auction. That means anything which is beyond that floor value, you would be able to do. But in the listed company space, especially, the value changes every day, actually. True. I mean, there's a perception, and there is also a long process. Typically, it takes about, 6 to 9 months to really have a merger and acquisition transaction to take place. So if that is so, then obviously you cannot actually start it at a point of time.
True.
And try and discover the value, what is going to be the value 6 months hence and 9 months hence. And especially in the listed company where the market cap is known, every moment.
True.
So I think reserve valuation is only a check which the government has. and it is after the bids have been locked in. We don't know the bids, but yet we are able to have a reserve value later in order to, before we open the bids. We do it, but it will be post-locking.
How soon can we see BPCL getting privatized? Can we expect first half of the next fiscal year?
No, I mean, it's moving on well, and we hope to, conclude in H1.
In the first half. You have other candidates, for example, Air India as well. And, when we speak to a lot of people in public policy making, they feel that if Air India is, if you're able to privatize Air India, it's going to be a big relief as far as the government's own finances are concerned. How are things proceeding with the Air India stake sales, sir?
The Air India process is also on, and you are rightly said actually, because there is a huge amount of taxpayers' money which is going into Air India. And I think there was a long turnaround plan, and that has, so I think last 10, 15 years we have been seeing that. Last 10 years, Air India has been making losses, and the losses are only increasing, and this is pre-COVID time. So it is not that, this COVID in particular has put that company into problems. So the problems actually emanate earlier. I think the airline business itself is an extremely competitive, nimble business.
Could that really play a spoil sport because we're perhaps on the throes of a second wave?
No, I mean, when anybody buys Air India, it obviously doesn't buy it for 6 months or 8 months.
Right.
It's a long-term buy. So I think they do take into consideration how the things go forward. How is the aviation industry is going to pick up? What is the impact of vaccines? Certainly, if you look at the first quarter and the second quarter when the COVID struck, there was a extreme thing. But in domestic side also, in many cases, 80 to 90% recovery has taken place.
Right.
Of course, there is internationally, still there is, it's still very, sort of much more subdued thing because of the waves. And I think going forward with the kind of vaccines rollout, etc., we think that going forward the
Here's hoping for better times.
revenues will be better. So we do hope that the Air India disinvestment will also take place this year.
Mr. Mohapatra, if I can come to you, while we're talking about PLI schemes on one hand, the Prime Minister himself has spoken about ease of doing business several times. He's also been speaking about reducing the compliance burden significantly. You yourself have been working on it. In terms of rolling out the red carpet for investors, we're seeing what countries like Vietnam are doing. How is India, I want to ask from you, is India really going to either emulate the Vietnam model or, all these countries that are, of course, inviting investors and they are big competitors to India? Or is India really looking to chart out a different path altogether with PLI schemes, with reducing compliance burden, with doing so many more things as well?
This entire roadmap to attract investment, wherever it has worked, it is based on a couple of things. One is the lot of reforms taking place across many sectors. And India is doing that. This reforms in labor, agriculture, education, a whole lot of areas that the string of reforms that we see, that's an evidence of that. Second is when you have seen cost of production and the cost of manufacturing in India vis-a-vis other countries, including Vietnam and others, we see a lot of the difference also arises the way the compliance burden exists in India.
Right.
Our inefficiencies, the systems, the delays and all, which some outlawed, some laws which are not contemporary, which are outdated, which are not relevant. Some of the procedures which arise out of acts, rules, regulations, procedures that we do, which don't add value neither to government nor to the private sector. So when Honorable Prime Minister did this review, he found, interestingly, some of these people who are sitting here, all three of us, belong to certain departments which contribute maximum to the compliance burden. Whether it is banking, insurance, taxation departments, the various departments under Ministry of Commerce and Industries, health, mines and all. These are 5 ministries, around 10 departments, which are found to contribute 70% of the compliance burden arising out of central government acts, rules, regulations and all. So the Honorable PM said, why don't you start these 5, concentrate on that. So as a result of that, It's a very important activity in Government of India. Now the Honorable PM reviews it. It's reviewed at very, very high levels, very regularly. Secretaries review it within this thing. I'm sure all of us do that. We have identified two things. Those compliance burdens which can be achieved by 31st March, and those which are little long-term, which require amendment of acts, enactment of certain procedures and all, which can be done by 15th August 2000 to coincide with the 75th year of the independence. You know, states, when they are allowed to borrow that 0.25% more, there are three conditions incumbent on them. One is they will do away completely with the process of needless registrations and renewals.
Right.
And second was that the inspections that they do, whether it's for labor, whether it's for boiler or whatever, it should be a system-based and not individual-based, and that system of inspection should be brought down. So we are now in the process of doing it. Very good results we are seeing, a lot of enthusiasm. We have also involved the states in that, because states also contribute because a large number of activities are in the states. So you should expect, and this goes much beyond that ease of doing business thing which we're doing for the World Bank. That of course is going on.
Right.
So, and our position has been improving. So we expect on the compliance burden side, we are interacting a lot with the trade bodies, the industry bodies, to understand where it pinches them, seeing it whether it's necessary for the government to stick with it or to change that. That's the logic.
In fact, anecdotal evidence, and when we speak to people, a lot of people tell us how state of Uttar Pradesh, for that matter, is doing a lot in terms of making it easier for investors to come in. In your experience, which are the states that are really leading from the forefront?
One good indicator would be to see the state ease of doing business ranking that we realize, which we released 4-5 months back. Uttar Pradesh jumped from somewhere around number 10 or something to number 2. States, certain of the other states, they're constantly maintaining their positions. There's a lot of competition among states. And some of the states which are doing well are also the states which are very, very industrialized or attracting a lot of investment. So states have to do a lot of compliance burden reduction, make their states attractive to come, a lot of hand-holding, a lot of investor support, and we are also going to launch a national single window for the investors. We are targeting 15th April for that launch, which basically means all the central government departments, all the state governments, we are taking 14 state governments. So they will be all part of that national single window. So the investor is on the one side, all the clearances, approvals from central governments and state governments will be in the other. And you can track your investment proposal where it is stuck. You can take those actions.
And what is the time frame that you're looking at in terms of clearances?
Many departments have their own time frames. We are not re-devising those. But at the same time, the departments will know where is this investor's proposal, where is it stuck. So that is a major help.
Right.
For example, if there's a new foreign bank or a foreign insurance company comes and joins this through this investment portal, Mr. Panda sitting in DFS would know, because he would be having access to that portal, to know where it is stuck, whether it is stuck in the state government or it is somewhere in some other central government departments. So that's the purpose of doing that.
Right. Mr. Panda, you know, while I was speaking with Sir about states, at this point of time, you just have seen the DFI bill being cleared as well in the parliament at a time when states themselves have been struggling due to various reasons. Of course, COVID is one of them, in terms of pushing infrastructure, and you did give them a helping hand now with this DFI coming in. How soon can we get and see the DFI being operationalized? And more importantly, what kind of support do you envisage that this DFI is going to give to India's infrastructure story?
See, the DFI is going to be a game changer as far as infra financing in this country is concerned. With the passage of the bill in both houses of the parliament, today it was passed by the Rajya Sabha, so it's soon going to become a law. So it will be a statutory body which will be set up. So I see in a time span of 4 to 5 months we should get going, in the sense we'll have the board in position, and then the CEO and the deputy MDs. So that takes a bit of time, because you will have to do the headhunting and get the right person for this job. This job actually entails, somebody with a world-class kind of experience and mettle should lead this organization, because there's a lot of risk-taking, and you need to understand the new and innovative means of financing. We also have assigned them a key developmental role, and besides financing. and then also want this institution to be the market maker for various purposes, including nurturing and deepening the bond market. So this new DFI is going to be an enabler, a catalyst, and a facilitator. So around that, we expect a lot of other private DFIs, which we have provided for in the statute, to also come up. And all of them put together, I think we have a very bright, I can see a very bright future for infra financing, and the national infrastructure pipeline should get funded very, very adequately and easily through this mechanism.
What are some of the learnings that this DFI will take from our previous experience, for example, when IFCL was there?
You see, these, they were largely NBFCs. They were not banks in that sense of the term, nor they were backed by a statute. So they didn't have access to cheap funds. Basically, the cost of finance is something which matters. So this new statutory body is going to get certain concessions and certain support from the government, by virtue of which the cost of financing becomes affordable for infra. And infra, as you all understand, is a long tail project, 20 years, 30 years. So you need patient capital to be sitting there. So we are looking at investors. When you are backed by a statutory body, you do the project structuring and you give all the support, then the investors will find comfort in putting money into these infra projects. Then we are looking at sovereign wealth funds. We are looking at large amounts of money which are lying with the insurance companies, with the pension regulatory authority or the schemes. So all of them will find a place in this new scheme of things. So that, and then of course the bond market, I'm sure, will also find interest in investing in these kind of bonds. So again, a very, very bright future as far as infra funding. And this was our Honorable Prime Minister has been saying that infra is something we want world-class infrastructure in the next few years. So I'm sure that this institution is going to play a very pivotal role in infra financing.
Mr. Mohapatra, as we wrap up this discussion, I have to ask you, we do know Tesla is coming into India. Any of the other big players that you can share, some names with us, big companies that are looking to park their money in India?
Not park their money, to invest in India.
Yeah, park their money, I said.
We are targeting around 1,000 of odd companies based on their pronouncements in various fora. Tesla is, of course, one of them we are talking, but we are also looking into their individual interests, the India office they've set up, the various state offices they've set up, the MOUs they've signed. And as I said, PLI is just one, but outside PLI, a lot of investment proposals are in the offing, and they are happening.
Okay.
Names I won't like to have.
Okay, we'll catch you for names on the sidelines, but thank you very much, sir, for joining in and taking your time out. Thank you very much.
And Ruchi, India in many